Hi guys, welcome to Dazzle District. In today's video, I'm going to make the bundles that my sister got me for Christmas into a wig. Just to remind you guys, I got 3 18-inch bundles and I think a 12 or 16-inch frontal, and I'm going to just make the hair with these things. If this is your first time stopping by, you're very welcome to the district. Please hit the subscribe button to join. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoy it, share it with your friends. No wild ones. Just not waste any time. Let's just get into the video.
Firstly, you're going to place your wig head on your tripod and your wig cap on your wig head. You're going to adjust the wig cap to fit like it would on your head. When that's done, you drag down the back of the wig cap and pin it with a T-pin. Adjust it and make sure it's flat like this. Pinned lower at the back and no wrinkles on top. Then replace the frontal on the wig cap and drag it down to be at least an inch in front of the wig cap before pinning down right in the middle where the dotted line is. Here I'm just making sure that the frontal is flat. I'm using my T-pins to pin the edges right in the center. I have to make sure that it's centered and flat. Those are the two most important points. You check what you've done, and if it's okay, you move on to doing this side. So firstly, I'm going to just pin the hair out of the way, and then I'm going to take the edge off of the frontal. The next thing I'm going to do is just make sure that the frontal is flat, and then I'm going to pin the edge of the curved side down on the thicker side of the wig. The thick edge is where I'm going to pin it. Next, I'm going to just make sure that everything is properly pinned. And this is a little tip that I learned after pinning the front part of the lace and the back side and the edges. Please look out for the spaces that appear on both sides of the T-pin. These spaces sort of indicate that your frontal is either properly positioned or not, so they can help you as a guideline to know how to position your frontal. Moving on, I am rebraiding the hair on the frontal and getting it out of the way so I can proceed. Look out for the space on both sides of the T-pin in the front part of the lace, because if it's not properly positioned or if both of them are not of similar size, it can throw off the frontal's look or how it's going to be positioned on your head. Moving on, I am going to use my finger, my index finger, as a guideline to measure and mark out the lines that I will sew on. Unfortunately, my line work was not so great. Ideally, you're supposed to use a measuring tape and line it at least an inch apart. I couldn't find my measuring tape and I was just about to start, so I just went ahead with it. So I'm going to use my finger constantly, but when I get to the top, instead of going in straight lines, I begin to go in a, I would say, U form. And U because it's drawing the letter U, round behead, so the edges are straighter lines and then the back side is now a bit curved. Ideally it's supposed to go up, so I'm going to redraw them as I proceed. The frontal needs to be flat and secure, because if it's not, when you're combing it or whilst you're styling it, the threads could break. So my way of sewing my wig on is when you pass the curved needle through the thicker edge on the frontal, then you pass the same thread attached to the needle underneath the needle, and then you pull until it's flat and it's formed a knot. Keep pulling on the thread with a firm grip, and if you look at your frontal, you will see that on the edge there is just a little, like 1 centimeter, that's relatively thicker than the rest of the lace. This is the part that you're supposed to sew on, so you have to make sure you start on the very edge of the wig cap, and where the dark edge of the band is, that is where you're supposed to start. Then you just go in small spaces. Don't make the gaps too big, because remember, you will be combing the hair constantly, so you don't want the tooth of the comb to get into the spaces of the thread, so you need to do small spaces and make sure to constantly be pulling on the thread so that everything is flat and there are no spaces or holes. When you start to approach the edge of the lace, you have to make sure that you are still sewing on the line that you have drawn out. You also have to make sure that you get to the very end of the lace. You see where I am at? I'm literally on the last part, like the very edge of the lace. That's where you're supposed to stop because you don't need any spaces or loose ends. The next thing I'm doing is I'm wrapping the thread multiple times around the needle before I pull it. So while you're sewing on the regular side of the lace, you pass it around just one time, but when you are at the edge, you pass it around several times to make the knot stronger. Then I cut it with my scissors, and then I just tie the leftover thread multiple times with my hand before finally cutting off the excess thread, just so that it's smaller and it's out of the way with the hair. If you did everything exactly the way you were supposed to, then it's going to be really strong and secure, as you can see, and it won't move. Everything will stay the way you've sewn it down. Anyways, right now I'm opening up the frontal just to check if everything is intact. What you can also do is wear it on your head before you proceed to cutting out the space that is underneath the lace. You just cut out finely, and you leave a little space so that it's not too close to where you've sewn, and you place your wig cap back on the wig head. I cut mine off camera, so I didn't get to show you guys. Moving on, you're going to open your bundles. You're going to cut out the tags and just unwrap the bundles so that it's a long straight weft, which usually is what it is. I'm just detangling and stretching it so that I can have the full length, and then I can measure it on the head and choose the size I need for each level. So this is the full thing. Then I'm just going to take the side. Please make sure your bundle is doubled, or mine is doubled already, but if it's a single wrap, then you can double it because it's always better to be doubled. So I'm just going to measure that particular line, the first line, and then I'm going to cut it out. Then you're going to thread your needle and then tie a strong knot at the end of the thread. You're going to do this just before you start sewing. So please remember to sew on the very edge of your wig cap, like the very edge. I'm going to zoom in and show you where I'm starting from. Then I'm going to use a T-pin and just hold down the edge of the weft I had just cut out. I'm going to take my needle and pass that underneath the band of the weft, and then into the wig cap, and then into the thread. So remember the technique we used to sew the frontal down, where you pass the needle into the wig cap and into the lace? Well, for the bundles, you're going to pass the needle underneath the weft into the wig cap, and then use the thread to pass under the needle once again. So please just watch how I'm sewing it and see if you understand it. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comment section. Just a little feedback, guys. This is actually my second time making a wig, so I'm not a professional, but I am training myself to actually do hair better, and I think where I'm at is really not a bad place. So I'm just sharing my experience with you all, and I hope somebody can learn something from it as well. Alright, so I'm going to keep sewing the first line until I reach the edge. I just want to point out that I changed the way I was sewing. I was initially doing the other way. I was sewing from the bottom of the weft into the wig cap, but I changed it to sewing into the wig cap first and then going under the weft because this is more comfortable for me, and I just switched it up so I'm more comfortable. Okay, so when I get to the end, you can see that I'm wrapping the thread multiple times before I pull, and I'm pulling tightly to make sure that it's flat and fastened. Then I'm tying it with my hand, and then I'm just going to cut it off with the scissors once that's done. Moving on, you're just going to keep doing the same thing. You take the long weft and then you measure it on the next line. When it's the amount that you need, you cut out what you need and you start to sew down. While you're sewing, make sure to continuously pull on the thread after passing the needle into it, as you see what I have just done. I put the thread into the wig cap and then underneath the weft and then into the hole that is created by the thread, and then you pull. You just keep doing that level after level, line after line, until you make more progress and make your way to the top. Sometimes if your thread is not long enough, it could finish in the middle of the line, just like what happened here. So what you do is you tie it just the same way you would tie it at the edge. You wrap the thread around several times, you pull, you cut, and you tie. And then after that, you take a new thread and then you start just right where you left off, and you do the exact same thing. So you pass the needle through the wig cap and under the weft, and then you wrap the thread around it several times before you tie and cut. As you can see, we've moved on to the next line. This is the third line, and we're just going to keep doing the same things on repeat. Now I have reached about the 6th or 7th line, and I have redrawn the mapping for the top part of the head. As you can see, it is not straight anymore. It is rather like a U on the back of the head, like I mentioned. And I'm just going to show you some of my stitch work, and then I'm going to continue from where I have left off.
So I took a little break because I got tired, but I have made some good headway, I would say. So this is where I am. I have gotten up here, and I think I have about 5 lines left, give or take. Yeah, so this is just how it's looking right now. Yeah, I'm loving it so far. I already cornrowed my hair, so I'm ready, you know. I think it's important to have your needles threaded before you start sewing. And I say this because, like, sometimes when you're in the flow, like you're like sewing actively, you don't want to stop and have to start threading needles. So I would advise that you thread your needles first. My apologies, I'm using my other dummy as a pin cushion, but what can I do? Take a new bundle and I open it. Start by taking off the tags. Yeah.
When you're about to measure a new track, I usually take from the side that is already cut open or on the edge.
The part that is open and not the part that is closed. So I take from this angle. I have a bit of OCD, so like I always try to make sure that the two of them, the two edges are just like at the same place. I can't have one longer or shorter. So this is the line, guys. I'm so sorry that my line is really not so great. Let me bring it closer a bit. So this is the line I am following here. I did the patterns wrongly the first time. So this line right here. So I align this here first of all, and then I take a pin from here and I just hold that together on the line, exactly on the line, and then I pin it on the weft right there. So I'm following this line, and here using my finger to hold, I'm going to turn this around so you can see. So basically this is how it's going to be, like this of some sort. So I'm going to cut it right here where I have measured it, there, and then I'm going to just cut it right here. Right there.
Then I'm going to thread my needle and tie a knot at the end of the thread and begin to sew. You guys know the drill by now. You pass the needle into the wig cap and underneath the weft, and then you pass it through the hole, and then you wrap it around the thread and you tie it. So I wasn't able to finish making the wig in one day, so this is the next day. I took a break, I went to bed, and I woke up in the morning bright and early and started from where I left off. So at this point I have about 3 or 4 lines left, and I'm just going to speed through them so I don't bore you guys with any more details. I believe by this point you get the gist of how to sew through the levels, through the lines, how to measure from your bundles, and basically any other thing you might want to know, you can just ask in the comment section and I'll let you know. Yeah, so this is me just showing you my progress, and then I'm going to continue to do the last 3 lines. So at this point you're going to just cut straight lines instead of going in the U outline that we had done before, because we are in the center of the head, just in front of the frontal. So I'm just going to skip till the end. This is me about to do the very last line, and I'm just going to do the same set of things. I'm going to cut a very short line here. I'm just pinning down the weft with the T-pin, and I'm cutting out the exact amount I need. After that, I just sewed it down quickly and it was a wrap. This is literally the end of this video. I made this wig in 2 days and it was really a fun experience. It was a bit more difficult than the first wig I made because the first one was a shorter wig, but this was still a good one. I'm just going to show you how good the hair is. I found some gaps in the hair that I'm going to fill in off camera, but I just wanted to show you guys. I combed this hair with the big brush and there was no shedding. Combed with a wide tooth comb, there was no shedding. I even combed with a small hair comb. There was literally minimal shedding, like minimal to none. So anyways, moving on. This is me just getting ready to do the elastic band because the wig cap was not so fitted on my head, so I wanted to just adjust it and add some final fittings. Right now I'm just measuring the exact position to sew the band. I'm not able to really get it while I have it on my lap, so I put it on my head and I mark out the exact points with my chalk. I mark just in front of my ears, so the band is going to run from in front of both ears. Yeah, and I'm just sewing it down and we're done. This is a wrap, guys. This was a joy to make, a little bit of stress as well, but we move. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.